Hello everyone in the Secrets of Sleep Baby and Toddler Sleep Help Group. My name is Courtney. I'm a pediatric sleep consultant and I help families get a really great night of sleep so that they can enjoy the days that they have with their little ones. Hello everyone. If you haven't checked out the live all about toddlers, bedtime battles, separation anxiety, and disrupted sleep, go into the featured section and check out that live about toddler sleep. Today, this is all about things that parents should know about sleep. This is a little bit of a, sleep basics, kind of that like biology background about sleep that I wanted to go over a little bit of. Just because I feel like there are certain things that we probably should have learned in high school. Maybe like doing our taxes, how to buy a house, and, about baby sleep. So that we just had a little bit more, of a background in things that we would really need in life, So, sorry. Here are the 3 different topics I thought that we would go over. I don't have crazy amounts of time today because I do have calls starting today. But here's some things that I wanted to go over. So 1, we're talking about baby sleep here. Is every baby different when it comes to sleep? 2, how important is sleep? And I'm not going over them in this order because I've decided a different order today. 3, what are 2 main factors when it comes to sleep? Okay, so let's go over, is every baby different? So I shared a post in the group that I said on a mom's group. I saw someone say, hey, my 9-month-old baby, wakes up a bunch in the night. What's that about? When can babies sleep through the night? And then there was like 30 moms that posted, and they all wrote that it's unrealistic for babies to sleep through the night at 9 months of age. And that every baby's different, that some just sleep well and some don't. And then me as a sleep consultant, I said that that's actually really hard for me because I work with a lot of families that babies are not sleeping through the night at, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then we make changes to habits that are in place, and then babies sleep really well. Babies can sleep through the night at about 6 months of age. So that morning, I just checked on so when I work with families, we work through the Rested app. So this is kind of our daily tracking and check-ins. And that was the first morning that one of my families with a 6-month-old slept through the night. So to me, it's so hard because just the idea of like, well, babies are just different. Of like, but this baby woke up every 2 hours when we started. Every 2 hours, every night, we made changes, over the 3 weeks. We means they made changes. I gave recommendations. They followed it. They put it into practice super well. They made changes and their baby started to sleep through the night. Okay, so this is where I'm like, man, do I just wish that the world knew all about baby sleep the way I do so that babies can sleep really well and not just have this, blanket statement of like, well, just like every baby's different. When like there are legitimate reasons for why some are sleeping well and why others are not sleeping well. And most of them are not biological factors. Biological factors meaning, we're all just different, right? Most of them are more habit-based, and habits can be changed. Okay, so let's go into it. So I want to share some biological reasons so that we know, like, is every baby different? Like, or is every baby the same? Like, of course, we are all as humans different. And let's go over some who their differences are going to affect sleep. Okay? So, and we learn about these in my sleep consulting program. So this is not something that like I'm unaware of or that, you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm very aware. If I get on a phone call with someone and they tell me that they have a child with Down syndrome, ADHD, autism, some of these different disabilities, I'm very aware that their child has a likelihood of having sleep challenges that we cannot just kind of fix with habit-based interventions. Okay, so those are some examples. Iron deficiency is one of them. There's a few different. I was going to go back into my sleep course today, but I was like, I'm sure we kind of get the idea of like there are biological reasons here, and chances are, unless you know that your child has one of these, your child probably doesn't, right? Like if your child has symptoms of these, that's different. But if your child just struggles with sleep at night, likely it's not a biological factor, right? Likely you have, a habit-based, factor disrupting sleep. So, and like just so you know, like I do have a child with ADHD and autism. When he was 3 years old, sleep was such a mess. I was not a sleep consultant at the time. Every night before bed, he would just like crash around and bang on the walls. We got noise complaints. Like the neighbor would come over and yell at me. I'd cry because I'm trying to get him to sleep. I can't get him to sleep, you know? Like these are, you know, like kids with ADHD are the worst when it comes to sleep. And when I learned that in my sleep program, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Their brains don't kind of just turn off the way everyone else's do. You know, most people kind of need to cool down and, you know, kind of chill and get into sleep. And then with my very hyperactive child, that was just never going to happen. And then on the flip side, when we had, you know, chatting with our pediatrician, you know, probably a year ago, so I was a sleep consultant a year ago, he said, you know, how is, you know, my son's name's Milo, how's Milo sleep? And I said, great. He's like, really? You know, you don't hear a lot of ADHD parents being like, oh yeah, sleep's great. I'm like, yes, but we have excellent sleep hygiene, okay? So this is where I'm like, so if we have children that have biological reasons for disrupted sleep, then we need to go the extra mile when it comes to our sleep habits. This is where I'm like, every child being different, sure, but if you even like do have a child that struggles with sleep, I do, I can definitely tell you that I go the extra mile with sleep. Where everyone else is out, you know, till 8, 9 o'clock with their kids, we're home by like 6, 7. You know what I mean? 6 o'clock, you know, we try to have our cool down time at 5 o'clock. Lights in our home are dimmed. We don't do screen time. We don't do candy. We don't, you know what I mean? Like it's like because we have biological factors that interfere with sleep, we go the extra mile with our sleep habits so that my children can be good sleepers. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. If I was on a call with someone and they said my child had ADHD, I would say something along the lines of like, let's do our best to put in some really great sleep habits, but I cannot promise for you that, you know, you're going to have the same results that another family will have because there are biological factors at play, if that makes sense. But I do want to kind of, you know, just like bust the myth of, you know, well, babies are just different. So we should just kind of, you know, let's just let them do their thing. When I'm like, well, but we have habits that we can change that will help sleep. Other biological factors, okay, severe acid reflux. I've had families say my baby, you know, has really bad acid reflux. Can you help me to get my baby sleep through the night? Like no, right? Because it's like things that interfere with our sleep cycles, right? Like acid reflux. If your baby is legitimately like uncomfortable and in pain, or, you know, during the day they're not happy, then I can't magically make that stop at nighttime, right? So that's a legitimate biological factor. I usually recommend that families, you know, like I can make recommendations for acid reflux. If you have an acid reflux baby, you know, post below and I can make some recommendations for that. But to an extent, unless that's actually like cleared up or changed, then, you know, I cannot promise like excellent sleep. I've had families that their you know, their child does not eat during the day. So I've had a couple of families with 1-year-olds that one specifically, her child would drink water only during the day, not even drink milk. And then her daughter would be breastfeeding up all night. So our goals when we made changes to sleep were for the daughter to sleep chunks, you know, few hours, as opposed to just being up all night long. But I was not able to say, you know, get your baby to sleep through the night because, you know, yeah, that would be a biological factor of like, yeah, like there's a reason for like, you know, every baby's different. But like to me, it's not just like every baby's different. It's like, no, like there's something like you should probably go to the doctor. You know, she did. Talk to your doctor about that because, you know, that's definitely, you know, quite different than just the average 1-year-old. I've had families tell me that their child, there was one person I had a sleep strategy call with. She called me, you know, she's the type who was like, please, I just want to give you my money. Like, please help my baby to get, you know, sleeping through the night. And her baby was, I think, 1 month or even more premature. She would roll over onto, I think, her stomach and get stuck and cry and wake up. And so she says, every 40 minutes I have to roll my baby back. What do I do? Can you fix that? Like this is a biological reason for like disrupted sleep. We call it like a milestone. usually, it doesn't take that long for, once that skill of rolling back over, develops, the baby will be able to do that. But then there was, extra reasons, like this baby has, acid reflux, so maybe was quite preemie and was maybe behind on some of these skills. So, that was one of those things of like, once your baby is able to, your baby will be able to roll back on her own, and you won't have this challenge anymore. But that one we can't fix with habits. So twins and preemies, I think we have to have like a lower expectation for kind of where that they can sleep really well. So I work with a lot of families in person as like a doula doing nighttime work. And I definitely find that twin families are the number ones to be like, they have 6-month-old babies and they're like, all right, ready for my baby to sleep through the night. And I'm like, okay, but your baby was actually 3 weeks, early. Your baby was born at 37 weeks. So you don't really have a 6-month-old baby. You have a 5-month-old baby. And, twins, when they're, in tummy, right, utero, they have to share the space and the nutrients, so they're often a lot smaller. So, like, they do need their calories, much, longer than an older baby. So, like, these are some reasons where, like, yeah, babies are different. Your 6-month-old might still need a wake up, right? Because your 6-month-old is really a 5-month-old. They need their calories, and it's going to take them longer to get to a place where they can just sleep through the night. So this goes to the question of like, do I think that most babies can sleep really well at night? The answer is yes. I do think that most babies can sleep through the night. This is where, if on a sleep strategy call you gave me one of these reasons, I would tell you, like that one we can't change. But I also have just like a boatload of people tell me like, yeah, I just think my kid just can't, something along the lines of that, when there's like not a biological factor. And I'm like, no, like I see it all the time. I see it all the time that we have children who wake up, every hour, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, when they are, clearly at an age. So doctors agree that about 6 months of age, the average baby can sleep through the night. Okay, this is where I'm like, okay, if the average baby can sleep through the night, then maybe some babies still need one wake up at this time. But that is how much they need, for biological reasons, right, for food. It doesn't mean that some babies are going to sleep through the night at 6 months and others are going to wake up every hour or two. And like, that's, like that's the other option of like, it's like, no, like those are habits. It's not that there's anything wrong with your baby. Your baby's not broken. Those are habits interfering with sleep. So I'll explain how that works. And I do want to acknowledge that babies definitely have different temperaments. So whereas my son has autism and ADHD, he cries about everything. My daughter is like just like super chill. Okay, so if he's overtired, you know it. If my daughter's overtired, you might not know. Like you could probably get away with it. Like I could probably keep her up till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and she would be tired, but she might not be, extreme. And then for my son, like his temperament is so strong, right? Like if we start to head past 7, like he starts to be hyper monkey, like run around screaming, and then he starts to like crash, and then he'll start to like melt down and cry about everything, right? So, okay, again, we've mentioned there are some biological factors here, but there's temperament that's involved as well. I definitely find that those with like a more chill temperament, parents are less likely to, set up really great sleep habits because their children do not, display the need for sleep as much as maybe a son like mine, who it's like, oh gosh, if we go past bedtime, like, like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'll never get him to sleep, right? So I want to acknowledge that, like, children are different. They do have differences. But we do all have, like, the same 2 factors when it comes to sleep. And this is what I want to, reference. And that sometimes if we have children with different temperaments, that it's not that they need less sleep or more sleep. It's actually that we don't go out of our way to make sure that they have really good sleep, in the same way that, like, like I said, 7 o'clock, we're home, because if not, like, we're never getting him to sleep, right? Whereas like other families, I know, like they're like, well, it's no big deal. But the studies actually show that most of our children are not getting enough sleep. So that's why I'm like, temperament, right? We don't want our chill kids to lose sleep just because they just are more chill, right? Okay, two main factors that have to do with sleep. This is where I'm like, okay, so we all have differences, but we all have similarities too, right? We all have like skeletal systems, we have muscular systems, we all have, circulatory systems as humans. That's how we are, right? There's two systems that are involved in sleep. One is our like circadian rhythm, okay, our day-night cycle, and the other has to do with like sleep pressure and kind of like when our bodies need sleep, like how much sleep it needs, and when our bodies had like the sleep last. Okay, so I'll go into it a little bit. So sleep pressure, the buildup of need for sleep. Okay, it's dependent on a few different things. One is how much sleep we need at our age. Okay, do we all need the exact same amount of sleep? Maybe not the exact same, but there's like approximations. My sleep training taught me that as adults we need about 7 hours of sleep. I was like, oh, 7 hours. I'm like a 9-hour sleep kind of a person. My brother will tell you he only needs 4 hours of sleep. He's really totally fine. So here's the reality here, okay? My brother's not getting enough sleep. He might be able to function better on 4 hours than I can. And then I probably like sleep a lot and just really want sleep probably more than other things in my life and just want to be super well refreshed. And, I'm a mom, so like my kids are stressful if I don't have enough sleep, like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like different priorities, different temperaments. We need, approximately the same amount of sleep. Maybe I do need a bit more. As females, we do tend to need a bit more. Approximate, right? So it's like within reason. So if we have toddlers that are getting, 9 hours of sleep and we know that they need, like 13, then we're like, right? Some can do with like a little bit less and some can do with a little bit more, but let's be reasonable, right? Like, let's try and give them a really good sleep. I feel like this is one that people like understand more, like sleep pressure, the buildup of sleep, how long we went without last sleep. Different sleep consultants have different ideas about exactly kind of what nap schedules kids should be on, but it should be approximately the same. And I was going to say that people seem to know about this one, right? Every time someone comes to me and they tell me, oh, hey, my child doesn't sleep very well, they usually, give me their schedule of like during the day, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so this is why it's so interesting, because there's two factors that have to do with sleep, and I feel like people know this one. We know that if we give our toddler a nap at 5 p.m., that they're not going down for their nap at 7, right? Like people understand that. This is to do with sleep pressure, right? Of like we need them to feel tired. This is why people put their kids to bed too late, like often, because people will say, well, we had this nap at noon, and then our child didn't feel tired at 7 o'clock, so then we put our child down for for bed at 8 o'clock, and they don't really seem tired then, so we put them to bed at 9 o'clock. So here's the thing: if your 2-year-old has a nap at noon and then does not feel tired for 7, it's not that they're not tired. They have a lot of sleep pressure. They're definitely tired at their age. It's just that there's something else in the mixture. They're not feeling sleepy because there are two systems at play here. And like, this is why it's really important to me. Like, we don't need to put our kids to bed later. We just need more education on the two different factors that are really important and involved in sleep. And the second factor is our circadian rhythm. Okay, so our day-night cycle, it's regulated by light and dark through our production of melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that helps us to feel sleepy. So this is why I recommend dimming the lights up to bedtime, having 20 minutes of dark time in our rooms, in our bedtime routine. This is one difference that's huge between like adults and children, because our sleep cycles are longer and we spend more time in deep sleep. People tell me all the time, like, my child just sleeps really light. Like, yes, all children sleep really light. It's because they have really light sleep and they have really short sleep cycles. This is why I recommend a nap schedule at 4 months of age, is because at 4 months of age, they have a fully developed circadian rhythm. So what this means is that if I go to bed at 10 p.m. every night, then suddenly I decided to go to bed at 1 a.m. in the morning, gosh, I'm going to be a mess. I'm going to be so tired. Then the next day, if I suddenly decided to go to bed at 9 p.m., like I'm not going to be tired yet. My body clock is actually aligned to certain times of the day. At 4 months of age, your child's circadian rhythm is fully developed, and it actually matters what time they go down for a nap and what time they go down for bed. This is what the whole cat nap thing is about. It's because if you do not have a set nap schedule in place starting 4 months of age, then your child's body clock is a little bit like confused. Like that's really what that's about. They actually require a set schedule for the naps to lengthen, for them to feel sleepy at each nap time and bedtime, so that they're not kind of, protesting and refusing naps. It's all about circadian rhythm. And this is something that I know kind of like our general population does not know about. And I think it's really important. And then the next thing is that we need to have habits in place that don't interfere with our children's ability to connect sleep cycles. So this is all to do with their circadian rhythm, what their sleep cycles as, babies and toddlers are like. They're very short sleep cycles. As humans, we all wake up in our sleep, so this is normal. If something's wrong, so I'm an adult, if something's wrong, if I'm too hot in my sleep, I'll wake up, I'll throw off the blanket, I'll roll back over and I'll fall asleep, right? What a really helpful thing that we have as humans, so that we don't die in our sleep because we overheat, right? It's normal for us to wake up in our light points in our sleep. But if for babies, if there's anything wrong, they will cry. We call it signaling, right? They're telling you something's wrong, right? They can't take care of themselves, so it's normal. If anything is wrong, they will wake up. So this is why some babies are waking up every 1, 2, 3 hours in the night. When they are not hungry, it's more to do with something interrupting their ability to connect sleep cycles. Okay? This is why I explain to people the 4-month sleep regression. It doesn't have to be a regression. What it means is that your child now has a fully developed circadian rhythm and they have new sleep needs. The two main culprits that I talk about again and again and again are the feeling of needing to suck. So the sucking motion, could be breastfeeding sleep, could be a soother, something like that. They had it in their mouth when they fell asleep the first time, and then they don't have it anymore, right? Because either your breast is not in their mouth anymore or their soother fell out, something like that. And then if they wake up in their light point in their sleep and they feel like they need this to fall asleep, it disrupts their sleep. They can't connect the sleep cycle. They can't go back into their deep sleep because they're like, something's wrong. I don't have this thing I needed to sleep. The other thing is motion. So if you're rocking your baby to sleep, stroller sleep, carrier sleep, car seat, these are all different forms of motion. If they fell asleep with that, then when they are in their light point in their sleep and they're like, oh no, I can't fall back asleep without that motion, they can fully wake up, they cry, they need you to rock them again. So these are the main culprits. These are not things that we have to have in their sleep. These are things that disrupt sleep because these are not biological factors that they carry with them. These are habits that have formed at about 4 months of age because little babies, 0 to 3 months old, it's okay to be breastfeeding to sleep, rocking to sleep, and it doesn't interfere with their sleep cycles because they don't have a circadian rhythm fully developed yet. And then at 4 months of age, it's when it starts to become something that actually disrupts their sleep. So it kind of means that most babies, if they don't have kind of like the set schedule, we call it like the ability to self-settle, if they have sleep associations, things that are disrupting their sleep cycles, it means that their circadian rhythm is quite out of sorts. They wake up frequently in the night because of these habits, I think this is what is really important to me. I think parents should know this, that most babies and toddlers are not getting enough sleep, and that sleep is also really important. You might have noticed that babies and toddlers sleep a lot compared to us as adults. And it has to do with like brain development. Like this is when their brains develop. They need a lot of sleep because they're doing a lot, right? A lot of brain development at baby stage. This is when like learning, like all of that is happening, and when we can helps our ability to regulate emotions, right? So if we don't have a good night of sleep and we're grouchy, like that's what it's about. Sleep is really important. So I hope this was a helpful live for you. If you have a 4-month-old baby or older that's not a good sleeper, and you want to set up habits that don't interfere with their ability to connect sleep cycles, you want your baby to sleep through the night at, 6 months of age, or soon after, post below, okay? This is what I really want to do. I want to help families have a really great night of sleep so that they can enjoy the time that they have with their kids. It's not just like, oh, all babies are different, it's fine. It's like, no, like we actually, our babies are not getting enough sleep. We as adults are not getting enough sleep, and we can make changes to these habits so that they can have a really great night of sleep, so that we can just like enjoy this time that we have with them. Okay? I invite you to join our 3 Weeks to Better Sleep program. In my opinion, this is the best way to go about, making changes. And the reason why is because we can set up a free sleep strategy call. I can give you like, this is how I recommend going about sleep. But unless you actually take action, jump in, make the changes, which I know are really hard to do without that support, without that expertise, right? Without that, like we aren't going to see the changes in sleep. I always tell people like it's a 3-week program. It's a lot of work. If you don't want to put in a lot of work, if you're looking for a quick, easy fix, I don't have one. Making habit changes are a lot of work, and it takes time and effort, and I think it takes investment sometimes. I don't necessarily think that someone who wants to just figure it out is going to have the same results as someone who invests, some money into a program, puts all their time and effort in, does the tracking, messages me every day, catches up, we book phone calls, we talk it through, we change habit or change strategies if it's not working, or, we figure things out that way. Like, I don't think that someone is going to have the same results if they do not join the 3 Weeks to Better Sleep program. And that's why I highly recommend that if you're interested, post 3 Weeks to Better Sleep below. I will open up my schedule. I will book a call with you, and we can get you started this week so that 3 weeks from now, you can have a really great night of sleep on your hands. Okay? My name is Courtney. I really enjoyed chatting with you all today. Post your thoughts below, post comments below. Let me know where you're feeling, what you're thinking. Let's get set up with a call. Okay? Talk to you later.